Hello and welcome to this Veganuary guide. And today we're going to be looking at lunch, dinner, and snacks. So I've already gone over breakfast and we've already set the foundation. So keeping it simple, we've also set the foundation that we eat starch and fruit. And we don't eat foods like this if we want to be healthy. Okay, we don't eat foods like these because these foods that I'm putting down in front of you on the screen, these are high fat foods. They're not just high in fat, well, the meat, the animal products, okay? These are bad for the animals because they end up dead, which is in a civilized society. Why is death everywhere we go and see? And why is it part of a civilized society? That's my question for you. I.e., are we in a civilized society? I don't think we are, but that's for another video. So we're going to get rid of those meaty, fatogenic, obesogenic causing foods. And yes, you can still eat like this, but a vegan burger, okay? You can still eat a vegan burger as a vegan. In fact, you could eat exactly like you did before you tried Veganuary. You can eat the burgers, okay? You can eat the burgers, and you can eat the cookies, okay? And you can eat the pizzas, okay? You can eat like this if you don't care about your health, but you care about the animals and maybe the environment as well. Yeah. So there's all these different parts of veganism. So you can be vegan for the animals, vegan for the environment, vegan for health. These are the main things that people come to vegan for. And yes, there's spirituality and all of that stuff. So focusing on what we're eating, okay, what are we eating for? I'm going to start off with snacks, okay, snacks, and then I'm going to show you lunch and then dinner. So these are a range of different snacks you could have. So we've got some dates, okay, you could have some dates, you could have some canned fruit, okay, you could have some canned fruit, you could have some vegan gummy sweets, okay, yes, that's one of the foundations is sugar, high sugar, low fat, low protein, because human beings are sugar eaters. And we know that if we get our energy from fat, okay, so if we get our energy from fat, we do poorly. So fatty food, yes. There's some sugar in cookies, but there's lots of fat. There's no sugar in meat. There's lots of fat. You do poorly if you get your energy from sugar. You do well if you get it from starch, okay, starch and fruits, okay, so rice and dates, these are some of the oldest foods right here. Dates and rice have supported the pillars of civilizations in the Middle East and Asia. And you could also have some crackers and jam. So during the day when you can have this is, I recommend eating between 2 or 3 main meals a day. So 2 or 3 main meals a day, depending on your situation. And then during those, between those main meals, there's going to be, quite a few hours, 3, 4, 5 hours or so between these main meals. So during the day, you can eat dates. Remember about the stone, okay, there's a stone in the middle, so don't swallow that. You have, I recommend eating the softer, more digestible type snacks earlier in the day. So I've already covered breakfast, so you're having nice softer things quite often in the morning, like fruit. Leave these sorts of foods like these crackers, and maybe if it's bread, leave them till last thing in the day for your digestion. So have those things that are more easy to digest, so these foods. Then leave crackers literally for the last thing that you eat in the day. So maybe at, depending on your situation, maybe 6 or 7 p.m. Now, I would generally like to recommend 2 hours. Okay, 2 hours. If you say you're going to bed at 9:30, I wouldn't be eating right up until you're going to bed. I'd leave an hour or two at least before you sleep, and then I'll help with your sleep. So there's some very easy, okay, keeping it simple. So yes, these are processed foods right here, okay, but what is in them is just flour, water, okay, flour, water. So you can see they're high carbohydrate, low fat, low protein, quite a lot of protein actually. There you go. So these are made of plants, okay, wheat, and see how much protein's in there. 10 grams per 100 grams. So you don't need to worry about protein, okay? What you need to worry about is too much protein. There you go, vegan. Some nice snacks there. And I've also got some Japanese style snacks. So I like Japanese food. So just finishing off this bag of mochi. I never know how to pronounce it, mochi or mochi, but there you go. So I've got some fruity tasting mochi. I've got one left there. And I've got some more mochi. So I've got one left in there as well. So nice and sweet. So there's some Japanese style snacks. If I live in the UK, so that's a fairly expensive, if I was going to, indulge, that would be something that I can indulge in is, well, Japanese food. So there's snacks. And then for lunch, you could have fruit. I don't have one prepared, but you could also make yourself a smoothie. You could have had a banana smoothie for breakfast, and if you make it yourself enough, you could make 2 of these or make 1 of these, and then you can get a container. Okay, so this is just what you use to make it. You can get another container that you discount your smoothie into, and then you can make another one. So there's one thing. You can have fruit. You can have a fruit smoothie. And if you don't want fruit, for your lunch, you can again have starch. So you could have. So yeah, keeping it simple again. We're keeping it simple. You can have starch. So white rice. You can have it with some soy sauce, or you could have it with some sweet chili sauce there, or both. There's nothing illegal about that. It's not illegal. And then you could have that with some spice. Okay, so sprinkle on there some spice. And if you want to, I prefer having other vegetables added to it sort of later in the day. For lunch, I quite often just like it to be rice, but you can also add some corn in there. Again, that's not illegal. So there's lunch, super simple, fruit and starch. As I keep saying, that's our species diet. And then for dinner, again, I would usually recommend for dinner, once you've got past breakfast and lunch and you're in the afternoon, last main meal, always starch. So never fruit, last thing. Always starch, because we want to make sure by the end of the day we have eaten enough glucose. So sugar is found in high quantities in starches. So I actually have a chili and bean tomato sauce here with herbs and spices and some organic cannellini beans. And I always keep saying, eat to feel full. So I can't say eat 500 grams of white rice or 400 grams. You need to work that out yourself. Okay, so I'm giving you the principles of it's always starch and fruit, which is naturally high carbohydrate, low fat, low protein, lots of fiber. And there's water. There's obviously water and fruit, but you eat to feel full. So start off maybe with 400 grams of white rice with your sauce, and then work out if that fills you. And then what you should do is have some leftover rice. Okay, so have some leftover rice. So this is from a rice cooker. And then if 400 grams doesn't fill you, then what you can do is just have some more. So have some more rice. Maybe you'll realize after maybe half an hour, 45 minutes to an hour or so, quite often, immediately you'll realize that you haven't had enough. And, I'd have that. Again, you can have fruit juices during the day. So I've got some fruit juices there. Got some beet juice. Quite often what I do with the beet juice is, where's the sugar? There's the sugar. I'll actually put some sugar in the beet juice. So beet juice is nice, but I'll actually add some more sugar for taste. And this is all about getting rid of the fear, okay, of you think, well, rice is just maybe for salads, this idea that rice and starches shouldn't be the main meal. This, if you think about what your plate looks like, most people think, well, it should be centered around fat and protein. So you'll have lots of, meat. You might have sea life. Okay, you might have sea life and then meat at the center of your dish. And then you'd have maybe a little bit of rice and, you'd maybe have like a little bit of corn or vegetables around the side. Well, no, starch should be the main, should be the main food on your plate, okay? And when we look at the societies that are in the spectrum of those that eat the most to eat the least, so the Western world is eating lots of these foods. I don't call them food, I call them dietary food poisoning. Okay, food poisoning, toxins. The Western world eats the most fat and protein because it eats the most animal products, which are naturally high in fat and protein. As we move towards, so that's in the West, and then as we move east, towards those countries that eat white rice, for example, okay, white rice has been eaten by billions of people over thousands of years, and we don't associate the East, okay, we don't associate Japan, Malaysia, Vietnam, rural China, all of these Asian countries we always associate with beautiful, lean men and women. And it's tragic. The tragedy is the more they're starting to get, they're starting to eat these foods more on their plate. The epidemiological studies that look and say, well, this generation was healthy. Maybe in the 70s, there was very low diabetes rates in China before 1980. And then they opened up, capitalism came in, they opened up, and now they have all of these, temples to fat and protein, as I call it, to fast food, meat, dairy, lots of fat, lots of protein. And there, people are being convinced that they need to move away from the traditional human diet based on starches like this, and beans, rice. I've already talked about, wheat. I've already shown you wheat. I've already mentioned bread and fruits, dates. Dates, probably the highest sucrose containing fruit of all fruits. So probably dates are the most sugary of all fruits. If you were wondering, well, what fruit should I eat to get the most sugar? There's more sugar in dates than there are basically in any other fruit. The only thing about dates, actually, the funny thing is they're very, very rich tasting, because I think they're so sugary, and they have this very rich caramel flavor, and it says they're rich. That's the only thing, I could probably eat, unlimited amounts of oranges and bananas, let's say, or, canned fruit can be nice. But yeah, dates are very rich. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and like and subscribe. And I think this will be the end for this series on Veganuary. So I've gone over the base. The base is it's starch and fruit. This is the species specific diet for human beings. That means it's high carbohydrate, low fat, low protein. Naturally, that's how starch and fruit presents itself. Animal foods, okay, land animals and sea, okay, marine animals and land animals. These, it's horrible, okay? It kills billions of land animals, trillions of sea life. That's poisoning people, leading to chronic disease in the Western world. Horrific health statistics in the US, in Europe, and those places that are adopting the Western lifestyle, the Western diet, the standard American diet, the standard Western diet. There's so many people suffering as a result of Western culture. It's being spread around the world. I've done a video showing what America under the Trump administration is doing, these trade deals with all these countries around the world, making trade deals of these countries saying they're going to be accepting, American beef or American soybean used to grow cattle. You then get poisoned, so then you need to be treated by pharmaceuticals, which again poisons you. Okay, and pharmaceuticals, pharmaceutical industry is refined petrochemicals, which is refined crude oil. So you basically get injected or taking tablets, all these poisonous drugs that is never once cured heart disease, the leading cause of death of women and men in the civilized Western world, never cured type 2 diabetes, but time and time again, a plant-based diet has been shown to arrest and reverse chronic diseases, including type 2 diabetes and heart disease. Okay, so that's the world we live in. Most people believe it is in their best interest to keep buying these poisons, okay, food, if you want to call it that, paying people to kill animals all day, every day, to die from heart disease and cancer, or have high blood pressure, low quality of life, being obese, uncontrollably gaining weight, becoming pre-diabetic, type 2 diabetic, suffering from autoimmune diseases and leaky gut, and then having to, supplement with fiber supplements or calcium supplements or multivitamins because they're not getting the nutrients. So, yeah. This is good for business because it makes lots of sick people. It's good for capitalism because money is made by the flesh of animals. Okay, so flesh for cash business. So that's the modern world. Okay, the modern world is a flesh for cash business. Okay, but you can make the world a better place. You can make your own life a better place. You can make your own world, your personal own world of your own life, the people you love. If you care about, you've got children, you care about the environment, climate change, and water, seas being polluted, waterways being polluted, soil degradation, forests being cut down, climate change. This is the answer, okay? So keep it simple. All you have to do is go down a different aisle in the supermarket and buy white rice, buy, these, they're scary, all sugar. It's Western society is not a society that is eating too much fruit and starch. It's not a society based on a low fat, high carbohydrate, low protein, vegan, plant-based starch and fruit culture. It is a high fat, high protein, low carbohydrate, meat based culture of veins and blood and meat and dairy and eggs and bacon and all of the things under the sun. Okay, what we should be eating under the sun is plants. Okay, under the sun. If we live in a meat based world, if we live in a meat based world, there will always be evil under the sun. Okay, as Poirot, never say it. If you've ever read Agatha Christie, you'll know what I'm talking about. Okay, there's always going to be evil under the sun if we allow a system by which people pay for killing of animals, destruction of the planet, and destruction of people's health. Okay, starch and fruit. Eat as much as you want to feel full. No calorie counting. Keep it simple. Eat 2 to 3 main meals a day, generally keeping it fruit for breakfast and lunch. But you can also eat starch 3 times a day. So you could have starch for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You can have fruit. Okay, so you could have fruit for breakfast and lunch, but always starch last thing. So if you're going to have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you could have breakfast and lunch fruit or smoothies. Dinner, always a starch base, so rice is great. You could have pasta, you could have potatoes, but always mainly starch. Then you can add some things like corn. You can have some beans in there. Not a salad. Okay, the bowl should not be made up as a salad if you want to be healthy. Glucose derived ATP. So you have trillions of cells in your body, trillions, and they all run on glucose. Okay, glucose derived ATP. And ATP is the molecule that powers all of your cells. So as I say, bananas. Okay, I've got 5 bananas here. 5 bananas a day keeps the doctor away. 6 bananas a day keeps the doctor away. Not an apple, not a salad. Okay, not eating broccoli and kale. It's eating sugars. Okay, starch. Starch is long polymers of glucose, then wrapped in fiber. You've got fructose in fruit. You got a mixture of maybe some sucrose in there as well. Starch is glucose, long chains of glucose. Fruit, there's your fructose. And people aren't getting fat from eating too much high fructose fruit. They're eating too much fat. Okay. So there you go. That's the message. You can either get your energy from sugars or fats. If you get your energy from fats, you do poorly. You get it from sugar. You don't want to be like all of the Westerners in the world who are eating fat, and then you see the chronic disease. Okay, especially if you live in the US and you will become bankrupted. Okay, you will be bankrupted because you're not caring about your health. You will be bankrupted for your heart surgery or stents or statins, or you'll be bankrupted by type 2 diabetes medication or surgeries that you need and all these drugs. You will be bankrupted by the US healthcare system if you don't take control of your own destiny. Okay, so this is giving back your destiny. Controlling your own destiny is a plant-based, starch and fruit-based diet. Anyway, thank you for your time. Like and subscribe and share the video with people who don't want to be bankrupted by the US healthcare system or wherever in the world that you have to pay. Luckily enough, in the UK, we don't yet have to pay for insurance, but private healthcare is coming. So there you go. Anyway, thank you for your time, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.